We're talking banking and finance on AME Info, and from a Middle Eastern perspective now, and in particular the GCC, taking a look at the growth of prepaid cards. And Scott, from your analysis, from a Visa perspective, this region and also beyond the GCC is seeing very strong growth each year, 300% or more, isn't it?
Yeah, in the last 3 years, we've seen over 300% growth annually in what we refer to as our CEMEA region, which is Central Europe, Middle East, Africa.
Is that because they're a relatively young market compared with the more mature markets?
That's exactly right.
So it's a catch-up process, perhaps?
Well, what we see is the same kind of global trends that are driving the use of prepaid cards on a global basis apply equally to the CEMEA region, and we think here to the GCC and the Middle East overall. And to your point, I think that's exactly spot on, is where you get a market that where the prepaid category is less mature, you see more aggressive growth rates.
We'll look at opportunities here in the Middle East for the use of prepaid cards, but briefly catching up, and we spoke about this before, from a consumer basis, prepaid cards for like telephones, shopping malls are now embracing this opportunity. Here in Dubai, the Salak road toll system.
Exactly.
How can this expand for a consumer?
Well, I think from a consumer perspective, there are a lot of different opportunities, a lot of different value propositions that issuers and partners can provide to consumers. So examples are, in addition to gift cards, travel cards. Here's a great example where rather than using a traveler's check, a family might want to use a prepaid travel card. They can have one prepaid account and there could be two cards issued against that account. So just as an example of the convenience, it might be that the father and son are on one side of town, the mother and daughter on another side of town, the son loses the card. Rather than have to cancel the account out, you can just cancel that one card and still use the other card. So there's some natural conveniences like that that are afforded.
That's something which you've led me on to, because I'm looking at the security aspect. I mean, you have cash, you lose cash, that's it, you've lost it.
Sure.
With a prepaid card, what advantages do you have in terms of security over cash?
Well, that's exactly to the point, and that is prepaid cards provide often a more secure, convenient solution for consumers. So here in the UAE, as an example, rather than a worker walking away from a work site with a lot of cash in their pocket, and many people might know that, if those funds are provided on a prepaid card, that provides additional security to them. And it's a similar case with things like a travel card.
Okay. And with the, staying with security, I mean, what is there on the card? Is there a photograph? Is there sort of a signature to link that card to its owner?
Well, it works like any other Visa card. One of the things that we provide for is that customers with any reloadable prepaid card, cardholders need to provide their information to the issuer. And then with any card over $1,000 as well. So
it's much more involved than the prepaid telephone card, which can be used by anyone?
Well, it depends again on the type of card. Okay. If you get a salary card, then it's something that they use ongoing, similar to a debit card.
And here in the Middle East, I mean, there's a big drive in terms, from a government perspective, for e-transactions.
Right.
So again, I suppose there's a very strong linkage with prepaid cards and those transactions.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we find that the involvement of entities like central bank and the different government entities in the prepaid category to provide clarification around the rules for prepaid often is a catalyst for growth in the prepaid category. And the salary cards here in the UAE are a great example of that.
And also with a lot of high number of migrant workers here, this is very different to other parts of the world in many ways. What other opportunities are there in this region, the GCC region, for the growth and investment opportunities with prepaid cards?
Well, we think that there's a lot of untapped opportunity for prepaid here. Certainly there's been a lot of activity around salary cards here in the UAE. You see some gift cards like the IBM Batuta gift card mall program. A family card program in Kuwait is another example. We think that there are opportunities in addition to those in categories like travel, like general purpose cards that can be used to manage spending or provide allowances to family members. Youth cards is another example on the consumer side.
Sure. And you mentioned youth there. I mean, youth here perhaps have got a greater spending power than perhaps in a lot of regions around the world. So that's a big market.
That's exactly right. And as I mentioned, that's one of the, a global trend that we see driving the use of prepaid cards is increasing buying power of the youth. And that's certainly something that can apply here, where you've got a segment of customers that you don't necessarily qualify for debit or credit cards.
Right,
And
sure.
it may be that you don't want to provide your 13-year-old son your credit card, and
Yeah.
prepaid is a great alternative.
Sure, sure. And people here do travel a lot. So what's the situation when you have a card which is being loaded up here in the UAE and you're traveling maybe to Europe or within the region where there's different currencies?
Sure, sure.
How does that work?
Well, what happens is many times issuers will provide different options of currencies. So, for example, if you plan to travel to the UK on holiday from here, you might buy a travel card that is in pound sterling. Likewise, if you travel to Europe, it might be a travel card, and you load that with euros.
Yeah. And to finish off, how would you sum up the potential of prepaid cards in the GCC region?
Well, we think there's enormous potential for prepaid. For a lot of the reasons that I mentioned, there are a lot of drivers of use of prepaid cards here, and we think that, as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of untapped potential, both for consumer, products provided directly to consumers, as well as opportunities like salary cards, corporate incentive cards, where companies use prepaid cards to provide commission payments to individuals, or government entities using it for benefits disbursements.
Scott, once again, thanks very much for joining us here on AME Info.
Thank you, a pleasure.